Inside your bedroom, we stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm.
Yes, I know it is November, and I know it is not Thanksgiving even yet, but the lighting was good here. The Christmas tree is up. It's beautiful, and I wanted to film in front of it. So we're doing that. Hi, hello. My name is Amy Prokopis. I am a fantasy romance author. And in the back, here's June just hanging out. She'll probably be there for the duration of the video. Today, we are going to talk about all of the beginnings, the basics of starting your indie author platform. Some of the things I think you should do first, some of the things I did first or wish I had done first, and everything that may be included in or helpful to somebody that is just getting started as an indie author. So we're talking about from step one, blank slate. You don't have anything published yet, but you want to, and you want to know how you should set the groundwork in doing that. We're going to talk about that today. I just launched this super cool guide. It is available on Patreon. You can purchase it. You do not have to be a member of my Patreon to get access to this. You can join my Patreon for $5 a month and get this item for free, as well as many, many other things. In the month of November, I am publishing my book, Frozen as Friends, chapter at a time, the early draft, on Patreon. So by the end of it, by November 24th, the entire early draft will be there. So there is a lot of fun things to my Patreon account and all of my community there. So highly recommend, but if you don't want to join and subscribe for $5 a month, you can buy this for $3 even on Patreon. It is the lowest that I could list it for, or else I would have listed it at $1.99, which was what I wanted to list it for. But on Patreon, the minimum is $3. So you can get the Indie Author Starter Guide for $3, and you can follow along with me and get more in this guide than just in this video. So check it out. You may want to follow along. It's in the link below. One thing I wish I had just done from the get-go was go ahead and create an author LLC. That is something I did, I think, in year 2 of being a published author. So by that point, I had 2 books out. I was working on the 3rd. I already had income and everything behind me. I wish I had just gone ahead and set up my business from the get-go as an LLC. So LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. I function in mine as a sole proprietor, which means it is an LLC of one. I am the only employee. I am the owner and operator. So it's super, super easy. Filing taxes with LLCs, you can actually file them with your personal if you want. This year, I think I will be filing them separately, but talk to your tax man, your tax expert, because I am not one. I am just the author, and I am just giving you the details about why I set my own business up as an LLC and why you might want to also. It is super, super nice to be able to set aside my personal income from my author business income. It is a lot easier to see where all of your spending goes, and better judge your budget. So you don't have to worry about running over and potentially spending more than you expect from your personal accounts, because everything is under your business umbrella. It's in a separate bank account for me because I also opened a bank account under my LLC name, Amy Prokopis Publishing. And so it's all super, super controlled and easy to see where all of my money is coming from because it is not woven into my personal income. So I really like that. Also, as an LLC, since it's functioning as a company, I can have business write-offs. So any expenses that benefit my business, I can use as a tax write-off. So things like if I drive to a signing out of city, I can fill up my account and it's a tax write-off on my business. When I furnish my home office, which functions as my writing office, that can also be a business expense. So the little things like that can also pay off in the long run. since I function under an LLC. So you can start one in, I believe, any state. You don't have to be in the state. It doesn't have to be in the state you live in. Mine is, because it was also very inexpensive to start my LLC here. But you can shop around. You can have your LLC in a different state than you live in. Check it out. Also, something I did not do, and I think would have sort of helped alleviate some of my stress, is if I had talked to an accountant before I ever started. That would have taken, I think, a lot of the burden off of me, because your accountant can help guide your decisions with your LLC. So I wish that rather than setting it all up myself and learning as I go, I had just set aside the time, talked to an accountant about all of my business expenses, an LLC, and future planning, because I also do things like YouTube, and I have now this online guide I sell. Selling books personally is different. Also, you need a tax license in order to sell and report sales tax to your state. I wish I had just talked to an accountant to begin with, because it would have saved me a lot of stress. So that is also something that I would highly recommend, is to sit down before you ever get started and set up, talk with an accountant. A lot of times they can set up your LLC for you, and that is all off your shoulders. Super easy. That's what I wish I would have done from the very, very beginning. Starting as a very, very beginning author, laying the groundwork from the ground up. One thing that I would do, even if you haven't published a book yet, is go ahead and start your website. There are so many different hosting platforms, which is the vendor you will use to create your website. Things like Squarespace, Wix. There's a ton of other ones out there. Check them out. Look at their prices. Some of them you can get an extremely basic website for absolutely free. And that is what I would start with. If you don't have any books behind you, and if you're not selling anything right away, I would start extremely simple. I would list the things that are pertinent to you now and create it with future growth in mind. Let me simplify that a little bit. So what I mean is, I would go ahead and create an author website, and I would include some of the basic authorly things on that website. I'm going to include them here. So there are things like a headshot. You don't have to get a professional headshot if you don't want to pay like a photographer for that, or maybe you just don't have the money to start that right now, since you are starting a business from the ground up. So you can just have a friend help you and take a really nice photo, and that would be enough of a headshot for the time being, or even like at all. A lot of authors just use some of their favorite selfies as their author profile pictures, and that's perfectly okay. Also include a bio of yourself. In my author starter guide, I have a simple formula for creating a really simplistic but effective author bio. Also, you're going to want to include a way for people to get in contact with you. A lot of websites will have a way that you can drop in a contact form. That way, none of your personal information is just listed on your website, but you can also just list a basic author email there as well. For author emails, you can do a couple things. You can just start an easy peasy Gmail account with your author name. That would work. So your pen name, your personal legal name, if you're going to be publishing under that, you can list all of that information in Gmail and get an email for free, as well as like all the Gmail suite, the Google Drive suite, all of those and all that apps and stuff. Whew, I'm losing my mind a little here. So you can get that information, but you can also purchase the Google Business, and you can get an author email with author name at author.com, which is what I would recommend if you do have the budget for it, because it looks super professional and everything will integrate into your website super, super nice. And in order to do that, you also need to own the domain name to your website. When starting a website, I would keep your website domain incredibly close to your name. So I wouldn't make it anything super fancy or fluffy. I would strictly, if possible, if it's available, make it yourname.com. So my website that I own, the domain I purchase and upkeep every year, is amyprokopis.com. So when I upgraded my email services and I got a business email, it is author@amyprokopis.com. It's just easy to follow. It's really easy for people to find and access. And because it is my name at amyprokopis.com, it adds a little bit of legitimacy for people. So they believe it's the real deal. And any of the information that you put on there, a lot of people are automatically going to think is trustworthy. So what else you need to link on your website, talking about authenticity and making things the real deal, link your social media accounts if you're going to be active there. So link them there. That way people know this is me. This is the real Amy Prokopis. Link them there. And you're also going to want to link a place for people to subscribe to your newsletter. Just like the contact form, most websites, when you build it, have a way that you can integrate a subscribe to your newsletter call to action right there. And what I mean by call to action is I would include a reason for people to subscribe to your newsletter. And the easiest way to do that is by offering them what a lot of people call a cookie or a newsletter magnet. So what that is it's something you're giving the subscriber in exchange for them to subscribe to your newsletter. So it entices people to put their email in, hit subscribe, and they get something in return. Some examples of things would be like a full book. If you had like a novella, subscribe, you could put on your website, subscribe to my newsletter and get a free novella, or the first 5 chapters of my book for free. Something that readers are either going to want. So entertainment, for instance. So those books, like I talked about, free novella, free chapters, or something they may need. So for instance, I publish and post and talk about quite a bit of authorly things. So if I wanted to, I could create a newsletter magnet that's geared towards authors, especially indie authors. So this guide that I am talking about, this indie author starter guide, I could post that as a freebie into my newsletter. So on my website, I would put subscribe to my newsletter, get the indie author starter guide for free. And that would entice more people to be a part of my newsletter group than just listing my newsletter. Something to think a lot about when you're developing your website and creating it is branding. So in my indie author starter guide, I have an entire section that's all about author branding. It includes things like what to name your LLC, what colors you want to associate with your author platform and your brands, and different images and graphics. And a part of that is creating an author logo. That is not something I thought too seriously about until I actually was in the middle of putting together my author platform. I was getting ready to do book stuff, and my cover designer asked if I wanted to put my logo on my spine. If you look at any book on your shelf, on the spine, there's going to be a logo. It's usually the publishing house, or for a lot of indie authors, it's their LLC that they're publishing under, or just something to do with their author branding. So developing a logo can be super, super helpful in making your book, even when it's just sitting on a shelf, look like every other book out there. And it can be something that you can use to brand just about anything. You can slap a logo on anything, put it on a t-shirt, put it on some pens and give them away at signings. I don't know, but I can promise you, you are going to want it at some point. And so when you're establishing your brand from the very, very beginning, I highly encourage you to sit down and maybe pull up a logo maker, Google it. There's probably a couple out there, or go to Canva and just type in business logo and you can get templates to play with. You can also hire this out. There are people on Fiverr and other platforms similar that will develop and create a logo for you. But think about what you want to represent your brand. So a lot of the books that I publish are very fantasy forward or very like nature inspired. I've always been inspired by nature. And so I knew immediately when I sat down to do branding that I wanted things like forests and natural elements to be in the forefront. And so my logo has 3 evergreen trees on it. It's kind of ironic. I'm sitting in front of this Christmas tree because it's sort of similar. I knew that I wanted something like that to be a part of it. So when I stumbled upon these images of trees, it just worked perfect. It looks simple. It looks clean. There's not a lot of elements to it because remember, this is something that for your logo, if you're going to put it on the spine of your book, like a lot of people do, it is going to be teeny. So you want it to be something easy to see from far away that doesn't just look like a mess of lines and scribbles. It needs to be recognizable and clean. It needs to look good in small form and also if you blow it up. So aside from your logo and maybe like an assortment of colors that are going to fall into your brand, other things that you might want to consider are how your social media may appear. You may want to incorporate those colors and that color scheme into your social media. When you're putting together that newsletter, you may want to incorporate that kind of inspiration into that as well. So maybe those colors are backdrops in your newsletter. Maybe you use the same font across all your social media, your newsletter, your website. So consider those little details as well because everything needs to look similar. So if you put your social media next to your website and next to your newsletter, it should all look like it goes together. It should all belong to the same business because it does. Another part of branding that is more involved that you'll hear like a lot of social media influencers talk about more than authors is content pillars. I have incorporated this into my own business and I think it can be super helpful, especially because as indie authors, we do so much of the heavy lifting, marketing our own books. And for a lot of us, it means that we're doing a huge amount of it on social media, and content pillars are all about creating content that revolves around the same theme and topics in your branding. So in this my author startup guide, this is one of my favorite things in there. There is a content pillar developing system. So what I would do is I would think of 3 things, like big overarching topics that set your brand apart. So what are 3 things you want in your content pillars? So for instance, for a lot of people, if you're super on social media, one of those may be something like entertaining. I want all my stuff to be entertaining. We write books. Books are entertainment, right? So entertaining is a content pillar. For me, one of my content pillars is authenticity and transparency. I want everything that I put out in the world, I want it to be honest. I want it to be real. I want to showcase not just the really good things on social media, but the reality of all of that and the hard work that goes into it. And so transparency and authenticity is one of my content pillars. And then think of one more, because I like to do things in 3s. Who doesn't? So whatever that third one might be for you, I don't know, but whatever it is, jot it down. So now you have 3. And now beneath those 3 content pillars, think of 3 ways that you achieve those things. So for one, entertaining, if that is a content pillar, you creating books is something that falls under the entertainment content pillar. For me, since I really enjoy being transparent and I want to be honest, my vlogs here on YouTube about the realities of my everyday author life and my author progress fall under transparency. It is a way I'm showcasing the reality of my author lifestyle and what that looks like. So try to come up with different ways that you are going to showcase that. And that is how you will develop content, because from there, you're going to be able to come up with ideas that showcase your content pillars, and you can use those 3 hows to get that out into the world. It's the device you're going to use to get your content out and showcase the things that are important to you in those pillars. And the reason why people should come engage with you, read your books, and like your content. So we've talked about author branding, we talked about newsletters, we talked about websites, a little about LLCs and banking and the financial setting of your business. Let's talk a little bit more about the writing side of things, because I know some of you are probably like, this is a boring video. I want to talk about writing stuff because I want to be a writer. So One decision that you will need to make in the writing world is if you want your books to be exclusive or wide. Exclusive means your books are only available in one place. So that would be like me only publishing my ebooks through Amazon. You cannot get my ebooks anywhere else. They are exclusive to Amazon because I enrolled in Kindle Unlimited. Most of my sales when I was a little baby author and I wanted everything to be available everywhere. I was a wide author. I wanted as many people to read my stuff as absolutely possible. And so I put a lot of money, effort, and work into doing that. And then when I looked at my data, and then when I looked at who my readers were and who I was trying to target, they were not wide readers. So I did all of that work and spread myself so thin for people that my books were just simply not for. And so look at your audience when making this decision. Some of your readers may be on Kobo. I don't know. Maybe they read on Nook. Who knows? Maybe they read exclusively Kindle Unlimited and they just voraciously read through that content. They're Kindle girlies and that's them. That's fine. But sit down, take a look at what type of books I want to write. And as you've developed your brand and who you are and your content pillars, think about the type of people that are going to be engaging with you in that space. So I write fantasy romance. So of course I am targeting fantasy romance readers. If you write mostly young adult, you're going to be writing to teenagers. They're going to be maybe 19 to like 14, 15 years old. Think about where they hang out online, what their lives look like, the things they might be interested in, even if it doesn't seem to relate at all to what you're writing. I promise you, it's going to give you a better picture of who these people are and how to relate to them. And that is going to be enticing to them to then maybe pick up your books in the future as they engage with you online or see your content out there and learn more about you. So think about who they are, where they hang out, what their tendencies are as readers, and then make your decision. Do you want your books to be available in as many places as possible because that's who your readers are and they're a diverse crowd? Or do you want to make your books exclusive because all of your sales are in one place anyway, like mine were? Or do you want to do a combination of those things? I have done a combination of those things, and a lot of my other fantasy romance author friends have done the same. So my ebooks are enrolled in Kindle Unlimited, so I am exclusive on Amazon in my ebooks, but my paperbacks are available wide, which means they're available everywhere. And on the vendors that decide to then put them in stores, they are available to them. So do what you will with this information, and also know that you can always change your mind in the future. You can unenroll after your terms are up with Amazon and then make your ebook wide. That will evolve. Your readership is going to evolve, and so will you as an author. So this is not a final decision. It can change. So don't get too hung up on that. Next, I want to talk about platforms for writing your books. There are many different softwares and platforms out there that you can then write and draft your books in. So we're talking about, I haven't written a book yet, but I have this really cool idea and I want to get started. Where do I go and start writing chapter 1? There are a lot of different reasons you might use some of these softwares, and look into them. Do your Google search to decide for yourself which best fits for you. For me, I use Word documents. It fits for me. I like that I can unplug from the internet occasionally, and I can go away to the family cabin off in the woods and write with no internet. I adore that. I love that. Word is very versatile. Word is the tried and true. Word is still favored in the traditional publishing world, and it is still used in a lot of other industries. And so just because of that and the flexibility, I use Word documents. I used to write in Google Docs, And what I really like about Google Docs is it saves as you go. It's available everywhere. You could log on a different device and it's still gonna be there. So if you're vacationing at your aunt and uncle's house and you didn't take anything with you, but oh my gosh, I need to email something to somebody, you can hop on, get on Google Docs, and your document is all there nice and pretty and saved. And you don't have to worry about having it backed up anywhere because it's in Google Docs. That's also nice. There's also Scrivener and some other softwares that are similar to that. Scrivener is similar to Word in that it formats and everything pretty similarly. So I've been told. I don't use Scrivener, but there's also a lot of tools in there for things like outlining. There are note cards, all kinds of stuff. And I believe you can pull those up next to your draft and have that sitting there at the same time. So if you are somebody that heavily plots out your books before you write them, or maybe you don't know yet because you haven't gotten started, but maybe you're somebody that needs to know all the details before you jump into a project, you might like Scrivener because there are a lot of tools there for people that like to plot out intensively, and you could bring those tools up as you go. So there are a lot of options. Some of them, like Word, Scrivener, a lot of these you will have to pay for. So do think about that. That could be an expense that you put under your LLC, and it's a business expense, so it's tax write-off. So do think about those things. Some of these are free, like Google Docs is free. You could also incorporate that with your author Gmail if you are going that route, and it's all there for you in the Google Drive suite, and it's all in one place. There's a lot of reasons you might want to use these. Like I said, there's really no wrong reason to use them. Something else that I've seen some authors do is write directly into formatting softwares. So there are a couple formatting softwares out there. The two that I know the best are Atticus and Vellum. I use Vellum. And these are softwares that are specifically designed to create nice, pretty interiors of your books. So when you open a paperback book or you click through a Kindle, the way the book looks on the inside, the chapter headers, the page numbers, the fonts, all that stuff, that is done a lot of times either from scratch, if you want to do it in Word from scratch, which is a lot more time intensive, or you could upload your document to one of these formatting softwares and it will do it for you at the click of a button, which is what I do. I use Vellum, I write in Word, and once I have all of my editing done and I'm ready to move on to the next step and be done with the actual writing process, I upload my Word document to Vellum and then I format it in there. I have heard some authors that have used Vellum and Atticus and have gone directly in there and they write their book there and format it as they go. If that works for you, you can do that too. There's really no right or wrong. Look at some of your options, see what works best for you, because I really do think that for us as authors, we're all very capable of writing great books, and we all do it very differently. So there are tools in the trades out there that will work for some and not for others, and there's really no rhyme or reason as to why, except that authors are more comfortable with those things. Like I said about softwares for actually drafting your book, I use Word documents, and the way I format within Word documents to start writing is by the traditional publishing standards. So what that means is a long time ago, when I was an itty bitty baby writer in high school, I looked into how I needed to be formatting my book for the traditionally publishing world. So I format based on the standards for the traditional publishing world as if I'm submitting to a literary agent to go to a publishing house. And the reason I do that is because for me, I just really like standard practices. I like having rules and guidelines. And also, as an indie author, if I ever worked with somebody where I wanted to pitch my project to an agent, or maybe I needed help with like translation, maybe I'm translating my book into another language, a lot of those individuals like books to be formatted a very specific way, and most of them like that standardized format used in traditional publishing. So I found a guide online a long time ago. There are some variations of it, and publishers and agents sometimes want things a little different. So if you do plan to submit your book, definitely check out those people you are submitting to. There will always be a guide on their website for the way they want you to submit your book and what they want it to look like. But just for ease of use and for ease of transfer, if I was to ever go traditional or when I'm working with my editors, I use this format. So I do include it in the Indie Author Startup Guide, but you can also find a very similar guide online. So if you want to see what a lot of those practices are, you can just type into a Google search how to format your book or manuscript for submission, and you'll get a couple different guides. My favorite one that I like to use that has been updated for 2024 is a masterclass or an article from a masterclass by Dan Brown. That is the one that I prefer. It's closest to what I do. It also tells you some variations that industry professionals may ask you to make and some additions, because there are some differences. But from everything I've read, everything I've researched during my time as an author, as far as the way you should draft a manuscript, this seems to be the closest one that encompasses a little bit of all of it. So check that out. That is online. I may even link that below. Or of course, you can get all of this information plus the worksheets I've just described in this video in my Indie Author Startup Guide for just $3 on my Patreon. All of that will be linked below. So that is that. I hope you found this helpful. This is a question I get asked a lot when I'm out at events. I hear about people who have family members or friends that really want to write, really want to publish, but it is a daunting task to think about getting started. And so these are just some of those basic things that you can do right now. If you don't have a book out and you don't plan to have a book out in the foreseeable future, this is a way that you can set the scene, set the groundwork so that when you are ready, it is all done and all you have to worry about is that book that you are publishing. So I hope this was helpful. There's a lot more information I have even deeper into some of these subjects that I may put out in the future and talk more about. I want to provide some of those resources, update them as they change and go, and showcase how they work for me, because sometimes you don't know what works for you until somebody else talks about what works for them. So I hope it was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. You can do it if you are planning to write a book. You can do it. I promise you. Check out other people online. Look at your resources. Reach out to me if you have questions. There are people out there to help and support you through the process. And I promise that you will be an author if you really, really want to. You can do it. I promise. It's very, very possible. And I love you guys. I hope you all reach your author dreams if that is what you want for you and for yourself, for your friends. I don't know. But we have a guest. And yeah, check out my social media in the links below. Check out the guide. Check out the masterclass. And read books. Be kind. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.